Hey guys, Akiba back for another episode of the Slate Cast. Today we're talking about something really interesting to do with social media on Web3. So I'm going to run a quick intro and then we're going to get straight to it. Stay tuned. Kevin, welcome to the Slate Cast. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So, for anyone that's not aware, you're from the Kin Foundation? Do you want to give us a little bit maybe of your background and kind of how you got to Kin, and then like what's the goal and the mission of the project?
Sure. So I am the head of growth at the Kin Foundation. We are a nonprofit organization completely dedicated to supporting the apps, brands, and services that utilize the Kin cryptocurrency. I work in growth. My background is actually in entrepreneurship. Before the Kin Foundation, I worked at Kick. Before Kick, I worked at a construction company. From there, I got into product management, ended up developing an app where you could promote SoundCloud music using crypto, and then kind of got discovered in the Kin community and hired by Kick. Since then, the Kin Foundation started its own operational team, completely independent from Kick, and I became the first employee there. So since I'm a community hire and kind of just a nerd in general, I love crypto, and Kin's my favorite. I'm here because I genuinely believe in the project and its future.
So go on. So what's the goal of the project? What's it all about?
Maybe the best way to answer that would be to give you the story of how Kin was created, and that'll kind of give you an idea of the problem that it's setting out to solve. So for those who aren't familiar, Kick, K-I-K, was a super popular social media app in the early 2000s. At one point, the fastest growing app in history. They amassed 300 million registered users, but they ran into a problem that I think every app and game developer is familiar with, which is how do we monetize this without, ruining the user experience? And that's not to say that there weren't avenues available to them. It's just that they felt like they would get in the way of the experience that people came to expect on Kick. So they could have collected user data, emails, all of that stuff, but they chose not to. Part of it, was just being idealistic, very anti-Facebook way of doing things. So on Kick, you just choose a name, you be who you want to be, and you join groups and talk about whatever topics interest you. So around 2006, they started experimenting with an in-app currency called Kick Points. The way that this worked was it was a more traditional in-app currency. You could think of it as like Fortnite V-Bucks or Pokemon Go coins. And the way that it worked was they had sponsors such as Burger King and Starbucks purchase these points from Kick and then use them to reach the users on the Kick platform. So the users would engage with some sort of sponsored experience. It would be, a survey, a game, a video, an ad, something like that. They'd earn points. And then with those points, they can buy chat themes, stickers, things that kind of like make the experience more fun and Kick. Super popular. It did really well with users, but they ran into a few issues. Namely, one, anytime they brought on a new sponsor, they would essentially create new points and sell it to the sponsor. And then all of the previous sponsors that had purchased points were now diluted. The amount of reach they would get with those points was diluted. And the other one was, as popular as this thing was, they could not create use cases fast enough to satiate the amount of demand for it. So fast forward to around 2013, and the Kick team discovered Bitcoin. And that was kind of their eureka moment. And they decided to combine these concepts of an in-app currency and monetization with crypto. So on one end, you get all the cool things that are inherent to crypto, right? So now it's no longer something that only exists in one app. You could have many apps install the same currency. You could earn it in one app, spend it in another. You could purchase coins from an open market from another person, deposit it into an app to use, or earn it from an app and then trade it for a local currency. So this has real value. And then the other thing that kind of makes Kin special is what we call the Kin rewards engine. So the way that Kin enters circulation is that every week we pay the apps, brands, and services that have integrated Kin based on how much they're getting users to use it. So a way to look at it is if Bitcoin has a budget to spend in order to incentivize people to join the network and verify transactions, Kin has a budget to incentivize developers to create awesome use cases with Kin and get people to use it. Beyond that, there's a few extra touches that kind of make Kin special. We put a lot of resources and time into making really easy to use SDKs, very developer friendly. You actually don't need to have blockchain experience at all to integrate Kin into your app or brand or game. And we also have like a huge community. We have over 1 million people earning Kin, over 2 million people earning and spending Kin every month. and over 1 million spending it every month in consumer apps. Our biggest app is actually Perfect 365, which is on an augmented reality beauty app with a majority mainstream consumer female users. So, these users don't necessarily even know that they're touching crypto. They just know that they want to interact with these fun experiences and then buy things they care about, like makeup and gift cards and things like that.
And I think it's really fascinating because for me, that is kind of the end goal for crypto or for Web3, in that just because the people involved with it, like yourself and I, that are obsessed with the technology, doesn't mean the end users should even necessarily need to know about it. Like, I think the use case that I always bring out is like whenever a new app comes out, they don't like rant and rave about how they've got the most amazing implementation of React Native as the code base for how it's been built, or if there was to be develop a new JavaScript library, they don't talk about how great that library is for securing transactions on your application and the way that you communicate with others. You talk about the use case and the end product and the value, and I think that's something that the blockchain industry is really guilty of. Like, we talk tech way too much, I think, like across the entire industry. So the fact that you've got people earning money in crypto without really needing to know, not that they don't know, they don't need to know, and they can still have the same experience. Do you find that that's a benefit, or is there any potential negative side to that where you've got blockchain just running in the background?
Well, there's pros and cons. I think exactly the same way that you do. I say all the time that crypto has yet to have its kind of like Steve Jobs moment where, we realize that the marvel of engineering behind a product is not what makes it compelling to a user. So I would say that Kin is ahead of the game on many fronts. One of those being, what are people actually doing with your currency? What can they do? Why would anybody bother to make products and services and goods that accept this currency? But the downside to that is we're not doing things the way that other crypto projects are. So while other projects probably they kind of do things in reverse order. You kind of spur speculative demand, and you hope that all of this excitement around this token or currency ends up bootstrapping an economy. But I would argue that to this day, we have not seen that work. In fact, every sort of semblance of success that we've seen with that model is really just a product of coins riding the wave of Bitcoin. Bitcoin rises and the rest of the industry rises. It doesn't necessarily mean that any project has really nailed product market fit and gotten people to use it. So, we're doing things a little different. We're trying to really build an economy. We want to have people buy Kin to use it, not as an investment. And we think that in the long run, 10, 20 years from now, that's going to be the thing that makes Kin, one of the survivors in this space and one of the currencies that people actually talk about and use in their everyday life.
For sure, for sure. So what so the goal of the product essentially is to be the kind of the digital app currency for people, that if you have some form of token in your app that's not blockchain related, you can swap that out for Kin tokens, and therefore there's more utility by the fact that you could earn in one app and then use it in another app just by sending it across through a wallet. Am I correct there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's real value to these tokens, and you can, if you want, you have a normal app that has tokens. You could swap it for Kin, and all of a sudden it has real value. But then the other thing with Kin is, and I think this is something that the industry will slowly wake up to over the next few years, is we don't need 1,000 tokens. Not every project needs a token. Odds are your project doesn't need to create its own token. In fact, odds are that if you create your own token, it's much more likely to fail, right? I think people underestimate how hard it is to build a community, build an economy, have liquidity, get listed on exchanges, all of these things, and the allure of this possibility, this potentiality that in the end, because you created the token, there's so much more to gain. That kind of greed kind of leads people down these paths where they start their own token, and eventually they come to realize it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for 1,000 games to launch with their own tokens. To sustain one economy is already really huge. And so the Kin value proposition kind of asks you, why aren't we all working together? Why don't we all integrate the same token, earn it from a fair mechanism that works like Bitcoin mining, and then work together to give it value? And I don't mean value making the price go up. I mean value in the sense that this is a currency people want to use. When I think about a strong currency, I think about like fiat currencies. What makes the dollar strong isn't that it's airdropped to a ton of people that want to shill it on Twitter. What makes the US
Mhm.
dollar strong is that people are willing to trade their local currency for US dollars in order to do business in that economy. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the end goal with Kin.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, when you look on kind of, I mean, I'm on CoinCap at the moment, just on the project page, and there's kind of a mix of, like with every project, bullish and bearish sort of comments.
Sure.
One of them saying that, like, as an investor, it's not going to go up. Developers make money with the KRE, which is the King Rewards engine, whereas investors get wrecked. And I think one of the things you're thinking about is perhaps those people are thinking about the projects in the completely the wrong way. Like you say, it's not necessarily designed to be a token that you buy and hold. It's one that you're designed to earn and use and spend. You need more velocity to it. But I mean, how, given the current crypto market, and how so much of the kind of the crypto industry and people that are at the moment interested are looking for projects where they can make money on, how much sort of attention do you actually give to the people that are wanting the price of the token to go up, for instance?
Well, if that's the entirety of your role and the engagement that you're putting forward, I mean, for legal reasons, for operational reasons, we probably won't give it much attention at all. That said, I think our community's uniquely accustomed to this way of thinking because Kin has been through a lot. Our community has been through a lot, and the people that are still a part of this, they kind of realize what we're doing, and we're all working together to do this. The ecosystem of apps, the community, the Kin Foundation, which is to build something that actually kind of changes people's lives. I would love for Kin in the end to be something that my parents know about, that they heard about,
Mhm,
that has nothing to do with me. And that's not to say that Kin isn't meant to ever go up in value. It's not meant to go down or up in value. That's not the goal.
mhm,
But our idea is that if the strength of the exchange rate of Kin comes because people are just selling it to each other to hold as an investment, then that's actually not success to us. Success
mhm,
to us is that Kin is an extremely strong currency, performs very well, but that performance comes from consumer demand.
mhm,
People purchasing Kin because they want to use it, and we do think that there is a possibility that this could be very positive in the end. But obviously, we can never make any promises, and these are market forces at play. Any money you might make in Kin as an investment is just totally incidental and coincidental to its utility as a
mhm.
currency. That's all we focus on, and we think that that is actually the winning play, even though it seems short-term, unintuitive to people that are kind of just used to aping into the latest meme coin.
Yeah, but and that's one of the things. Like, 'cause I still do some advisory for Web3 projects, and that's one of the questions that does often come up is like, how much should you really care about the current Web3 kind of ecosystem in terms of like users? Not because they're not valuable in any way, but they have different goals to most developers. If you get what I mean, in terms of the
Yeah,
goals are about actually seeing these projects work in the real world and have use rather than just a way to get rich on the way up. Like,
right. As just a kind of like a trend, right, or like a fad. Um, I think that's kind of the crux of what the industry faces today. It's not, and we kind of talked about this off stream, and the idea of like play to earn, for example, right? There are people whose entire engagement with crypto is to try and extract value so that they can sell some sort of asset to get dollars or whatever their local currency is in the end. I think that the projects that are going to do really well over the long term and that are going to be up there with Bitcoin and still around 10 years from now are going to be the ones that people engage with, not to invest in or to earn money to sell the asset. They're going to be the ones that they earn the money to do something with it. What can you do with the currency that you earned, and what is it that you're aiming to do? In order to have an economy, you have to have inflow of of revenue. It can't just be people giving away money for, and it's completely just supported by speculators hoping that it goes up in price. You
mhm,
need to build something that compels people to actually want to spend their money and collect the currency, right? So imagine if, I'm trying to think of, maybe it's better we don't name any specific models, but there's been a lot of really popular play to earn coins in the past. And I've yet to see how this could possibly be sustained. I think what they should be aiming for is not giving away as much money as possible. It's great that that crypto allows you to create a token and reward people. That's beautiful. But to create a complete economy, you need to get to a very critical step, which is get people to spend their money on the currency rather than selling it. So I think the crux of that issue is always going to be solved by the same thing. The adoption problem comes down to what goods and services are being produced and that accept this currency, and how much are people doing that. And that's way harder than it sounds, but I think that's what the game is about.
Yeah, and I think in the short-term view of it, people just think, "Oh, I need utility." But I think you put it brilliantly. It's not. You don't just need utility. You need a compelling reason to use and spend that, or transfer it, or whatever you're doing. Just because it has, like, seems like it's like, okay, well, we have utility for this NFT project. Yeah, but no one wants to do the thing that it does. So what's
Exactly.
the point in this? I think
That's
it's
huge.
fascinating. Is there any other benefit for developers around the fact that this is it's a token that exists outside of their app? Because obviously, like, say, especially like the App Store, there's a lot of stringent measures around like revenue sharing and also using crypto. They obviously, Apple want to take, was it like 30% of all
Yeah.
transactions? So is there any benefit on that side or any risks?
Yeah, benefits and risks. So App Store policies, we don't really play cowboy with this space. We want to work hand in hand. Whatever policies Apple hands down, we follow. Whatever policies Google Play Store has, we study and follow as well. We want to be on their good side. We want the ecosystem developers to, feel safe in what they're doing. We don't want them to feel like they're taking a huge risk by integrating this thing. We foresee a potential future where these players, Google and Apple, are more willing to work with teams like ours and ecosystems that have a lot of value, especially as the policies sort of become lopsided. So, for example, today, Android is a lot more open when it comes to allowing crypto experiences. In the future, it could be such that there are a lot of really awesome exclusive experiences on Android that aren't possible on Apple. And we think that once that's the case, Apple may start opening up a little bit, and maybe we'll be open to negotiation. Maybe we'll accept tokens using in-app purchase, and accommodate for us. But I think the biggest benefit for developers is that because of the Kin Rewards engine, you can essentially focus your efforts and resources on just making really awesome use cases, right? Like the name of the game changes when you integrate Kin. So in a Web2 environment, the game is this dance you play is essentially how much can I push my user away to the extent that I get money from them, but without going so far that they're pushed off the platform entirely and stop coming back. With Kin, the new game is how can I reward my users as much as possible and get them to spend as much Kin as possible in my app? And I think that that's a much more feasible model to work with for many apps. It's not a perfect fit for all apps. I'll be upfront about that too. And I think that's important to acknowledge too, right? With Kin, what we're doing with this new monetization model is not going to work for everyone, and we don't necessarily need it to work for everyone. We want the ones that would necessarily benefit from this and do have users who would really enjoy it and who would have a better experience from it, to try it out. And we want lots of developers to have really, really great experiences. If at the end of the day you integrate Kin and you don't have a great experience, that was a failure. It was a waste of your time. It was a waste of our time. It wasn't really good. But all of that is to say, like any model, there's a lot to work through. There's positives and there's negatives, but there's a lot more positives than negatives, and the potential for the fruit that you would gain from these labors in this new model, I think, are huge. And there are almost too many benefits to list in this new model, and it's a totally new way of doing things, right? Like we almost have like a cooperative competition. We have a co-opetition going on in the Kin ecosystem. It's not often that you see, we have Perfect 365. These guys are their parent company's publicly listed company. They're huge. They're working alongside indie developers who, there's two guys on the team. And we're having meetings together and they're working together on things and how they can create use cases that help each other, and give each other users. You don't really see that with other models that are purely competitive. And the idea is at the end of the day, the value of Kin, and I'm not talking about the price, the value of Kin, meaning like the utility of it, and what people actually want to do, right? Not just like the utility for the sake of utility to check off a mark. Actually having things that compel people to use it. I think that's I don't know. It's one of the things that makes Kin special, and that I don't really see a lot in crypto.
So I think it is a really fascinating concept, like you said, in that the apps are collaborating whilst also competing potentially. But from a business model point of view, from your side, I know you said it's non-profit, so let's talk about it from just like
hmm
a growth perspective. Then, like the more apps that adopt Kin, the chances of one of them becoming a unicorn, like the whole project then just flies, doesn't it? Like you only need I mean, it's like only need one unicorn. I mean, that's a big ask, but even so, like one app getting a lot of traction is going to pull along all the others as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that could come from two sources. It could be an existing app integrating Kin that already has a huge user base, or it could be one of these apps that kind of starts small and gets big. We've actually seen that before. So yeah, absolutely possible. And I think you know, getting a unicorn in the ecosystem, it's not just about that app and what it's bringing to Kin, but also, how many of those millions of users are going to discover Kin and then go and try to discover other apps where they can earn Kin and spend it. It's kind of like this altruistic virus that's getting people to go out and try all of these different apps, especially in emerging markets. We think that there's a huge opportunity, in places like Vietnam, where their local currency is not worth very much in terms of US dollar value. But, we could see them getting a lot of value from Kin, earning it in games and apps, and then spending it on things they care about. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there too.
Brilliant. Right. Well, I mean, Kevin, it's been absolutely fascinating. Projects like this just really showcase the sort of the diversity of kind of development within the Web3 space. If so, I'm guessing at the moment you're interested in developers who have an application that has some form of token or could have a token involved with it, getting in touch, and then also just general users checking out the apps that are currently supporting Kin. I think there's a list of those apps on the kin.org website.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out kin.org. You can learn more about the project. The website's always improving too, new things coming there. There's an ecosystem explorer. You can see all the different apps that support Kin and what they do. If you are a developer or any sort of representative of a company that might want to get into crypto at all for engaging your audience and growing your revenue and your engagement, check us out. Feel free to reach out. Always happy to help you explore, see if it's a good fit. And if it is, we can help you get started.
Cool. And the best way for those people would just be the kin.org website and then contact form, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Or feel free to also reach out to me directly on Twitter, KRICOYLL. Also the same on Telegram. I'm on every platform and I'm always on. So, feel free to reach out at any time and I'll be there.
Cool. Do you just spell that out one more time?
So it's K Ricoy LL. So KRICOYLL.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And I say I found out about Kin, I think, towards the end of last year. And I think it's a really fascinating project. I love projects that are designed to help other projects out as well. I mean, it's kind of one of the things that I love about my job. I used to work in marketing and now work in journalism, and therefore connecting people is something I can do without having any goals, any sort of like agenda behind it all. And I absolutely love that. So seeing an app that can do a similar thing really warms my heart, and I'm kind of very keen to see it succeed. I think it's going to be great. So, Kevin, anything you'd like to say before we round up this episode of the podcast? Because I think that was absolutely fascinating.
No, thank you for having me. Always excited to have a chance to talk more about Kin. I guess while I'm here, I'll go ahead and also highlight, for those that care, the developers in the Solana ecosystem, we're also working on something called Kinetic. Another thing that makes Kin special, essentially, users don't ever see the transaction fees on the layer 1 of the technology they're using. So, for example, an app user, a Perfect 365 beauty app user using Kin, they will not see or pay the sole transaction fee. It's all done in the background by our proprietary middleware layer called Kinetic. And we're actually going to be open sourcing this and allowing all Solana ecosystem projects to use it. So if you have a use case where you would love for users to not have to worry about Sol and your token, we'll have this technology available to you. So we'll no longer just be the biggest project on Solana, but also one of the biggest contributors. Oh, you can look forward to that.
Fantastic. Very exciting. Brilliant. Right, Kevin, it's been an absolute pleasure. And for this episode of the SlateCast, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe and all that YouTube stuff. But we will see you on the next one. Goodbye.